Say, welcome to New Realities. My name is Alan Steinfeld. Each week on this program, I present the cutting edge, paradigm shifting people who really have a vision of how to change the planet. And today I have someone who's very much involved with planetary global mind shifts. His name is Dr. Elliot Maynard. He is the author of this book, Transforming the Global Biosphere, and we'll be talking about just how we're going to do that, Elliot, and the strategies. You're also the director of which institute, you were saying?
Arcos Research Center in Sedona, Arizona.
Okay, so your background as a planetary shifting thinker, it comes from which area? I mean, biological, theoretical, physical. How do you have your grip on this planetary change?
I kind of define myself as a Renaissance person because my background is very diverse. It spans the spectrum of zoology, marine sciences, biological oceanography, aquaculture, tropical forest biology, and more recently I also have a degree in consciousness research, and I'm a certified professional consultant to management.
But you came from a pretty mainstream background, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Science,
yes.
And then there was something that opened up for, this is what I like to do on this program, is talk about what that initial opening is with people. So, because there's so many mainstream people out there watching, what was it that shifted your consciousness and said, hey, there's something more?
Well, I've been concurrently with my more linear, traditional scientific background, I've had a compelling interest for years and years in spiritual development. In other words, developing the mind and the spirit and integrating the consciousness and the linear attributes of global society with the higher consciousness elements. So what I've been doing recently is advocating working and practicing working within the quantum field. And when you work in the quantum field, you expand the consciousness of this more two and three-dimensional world into a multi-dimensional format. We go from, first of all, forward vision, 180-degree vision, moving 360-degree vision as we begin to expand our consciousness, and then we go spherical, and then the next step is interdimensional.
But what opened you up to these possibilities, or were you born with that awareness?
I was born with a certain amount of sensitivity to the natural world. I have a great love for nature. I've traveled all over the world, and more recently in the last decade, gone out to very remote areas of the Pacific Ocean. I'm a specialist in coral reef ecology, so I understand the natural behavior of organisms. So I went myself to see the effects of global climate change, coral bleaching, severe storms from weather disturbances, and I documented them underwater myself. I taught myself how to be a videographer.
But what is happening with the coral reef? Some people say, yes, because of man-made pollution, these living creatures are being destroyed. Is that true?
This is a combination of many, many factors. And linear scientists, are still essentially arguing how many angels there are on the head of a pin, when they should instead be getting out in the environment, as Charles Darwin advocated, and experiencing from themselves, using their powers of observation and interfacing that with the powers of intuition, where you connect with the higher forces.
Okay, but then what's happening with the coral reefs?
Coral reefs, the ecology of the entire global ecology is being shifted. The effects of human activities on the global biosphere, meaning the oceans, the land, the atmosphere primarily, are being affected in many, many different ways. It's a complex system, and also this is indirectly affecting the atmosphere, the global weather systems, which are far more complex than any supercomputer can analyze. And therefore, the actual reflectivity of the envelope around the Earth, the cloud cover, the albedo, the reflective surface, the masses of ice in the Arctic and Antarctic, are all involved in this very complicated dance of weather patterns. Overlying all of this, the cycles, the solar cycles themselves, the solar weather, so to speak, the activity on the surface of the sun, is creating effects, and these effects are operating on such a long-range wavelength that we simply do not have a baseline for this. Normally things that operate in thousands and 10,000s of years, we have no baseline for.
But you're not saying, is this good or bad? I mean, what's happening to the planet? Are we moving towards a higher state of evolution, or are we de-evolving towards catastrophe?
I'm an incurable optimist. I believe we're moving toward a higher state of evolution, and because of that, when you bring light in, the negative influences will, by a sort of a natural spiritual law, start to try to counteract, and there's a polarization. So you will have a certain smaller percentage of the population on Earth at this time begin to evolve and enlighten their consciousness, whereas the rest of them, if they do not get on board this enlightenedness, will start downward or cling to the decks of the Titanic while it's slipping beneath the waves.
No, that's true. I agree with that. But what are the practical ways that in this book that you mentioned that we can start to clean the planet physically, and then of course bring in more light? But
well, the practical methods are outlined in this book, which essentially is a whole forest of new paradigms.
But let's go into some specifics.
The obvious ways are, first of all, intelligent packaging is a big one of my pet peeves. Simply by eliminating superfluous packaging, we could immediately make a huge dent in the consumption factor. There would be less material to be recycling, which brings us to the next area, which is recycling. North America is woefully behind Europe and other areas of the world in recycling technologies. You can recycle things like tires and tennis shoes to make new roads or tracks or sidewalks. There's technologies to do this. So by recycling, we're effectively getting rid of our waste and creating win-win situations. And the whole underlying strategy of these global strategies is to try to create a win-win situation. For instance, getting rid of waste in the recycling system, at the same time creating a new green product, which doesn't create a lot of pollution. Now, I've gone beyond this concept, and I like to think about win-win-win situations. Or win-win-win-win-win situations.
Okay, what does that mean?
In other words, if you can create not just win-wins, but 3 wins or 4 wins, and then multiply this by 1,000 different times for 1,000 different sustainable technologies, we're talking about a new paradigm, and it just happened right now.
So there's no waste, there's nothing we throw away, everything is becomes a
resource.
A vital utensil for building a greater future for the planet. And I think this is where we're at in our shift in consciousness. We need to see as everything is important. There's nothing that we can throw away. There's no person. There's no idea, in a sense, that should be discarded. Everything should be included that we can build a better future from. So
let's take it another step.
Okay.
Now, we just talked about win-win situations. We brought them into win-win-win-win, several wins at the same time. So now we're essentially multiplying the fish in the biblical analogy, the loaves and fishes, and we're doing it in a way that is going to clean up the environment at the same time. But if we work into the quantum field, which is going to be the new evolved consciousness that Earth is in the global social consciousness is becoming. Try win to the X power, and think about this. And then take, in other words, win to the infinite. Keep it moving. Now you have the new form of paradigm, which I've spoken about in certain presentations. The new paradigm is not a box. That's a traditional paradigm. This new paradigm keeps expanding. It keeps shifting. It keeps evolving.
Okay.
So this is very exciting. And not only that, but win to the X power, for instance, goes on forever. It evolves. It keeps changing.
But what's a practical way of showing that? I mean, it's a great conceptual idea, but how do you illustrate that?
Well, let's take something very simple like water. First of all, we start by protecting our precious water resources. There are vast reservoirs underneath areas of Africa that they're just finding. Now, these reservoirs take thousands of years to recharge. So first of all, we must have some vehicle to protect these. They are resources for the present and future generations. We must protect them. So then we must use them very carefully. So we go from protection and into conservation. We take only as much as will be recharged. Then we do something that I like to call super ecology, where we take wastewater, we use sustainable clean energy to clean it up, and we recharge the aquifer. This is the way the planetary resources should be used.
Right. So we need like a global planning community. We need to work together as a planetary consciousness if we're going to move to the next paradigm of a collective humanity. We don't need separate countries fighting each other anymore and arguing over resources, because resources don't know boundaries like human consciousness. So we need to have some people say the one world government is a bad thing or a good thing, but we need to come together as a planet.
Yes, in this, have been working for several years with the Aerospace Technology Working Group, which is a group of leaders from NASA, the U.S. government, some of the military, and Professor Emeritus from different universities, this sort of thing. And one of the things I have stressed with this group, one of the things that's embedded in this group is the so-called overview effect. It was developed by originally by a man named Frank White. I believe he was associated with Harvard University, and he's been on our teleconferences. Now, the overview effect simply means when astronauts got out into space, when people go into the International Space Station, they're in another global commons. I have told them that space itself, or the orbital space around Earth, is another global commons. It should not be filled with space junk. Garbage should not be dumped out. But when they see the Earth from space, it's the overview effect. The blue marble.
Yeah.
Consciousness changes like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and we'll get there. I just want to talk about the biodegradable plastic bags. Have you heard about those things?
This is a plague. This is a plague of an example of our technology overrunning us.
But they have biodegradable now plastic bags, and how can we start to bring that into popular use?
There are a couple of easy approaches. First of all, you start educating children from the earliest ages, and so you plug this into the global educational system. Secondly, you provide people, you have regulations and which need to be injected and infused into the various national and municipal consciousnesses so that recyclable plastic bags are used, and people need to be have incentives to do such a thing.
They will
not do this unless they have incentives.
I agree. Okay, so let's go beyond the Earth now and really talk to our cosmic, galactic connections, because as we become one planet, we realize that we're not alone. But we can't have that realization globally until we come together in a harmonious symphony. and that is happening. So in that approach, we will start to open up to a higher field of galactic interactions, and perhaps you can talk about some of the experiences, some of the connections you feel is happening on a galactic level, if you don't mind.
It's happening as we speak.
What exactly is happening? I mean, tell us.
We have a great resource. I've been working in a number of areas, and as a scientist have cross-checked myself. I've met people that have sat down at tables and interfaced with ETs, extraterrestrials, along with government officials, along with military officials. And I agree with Sir James Lovelock that if we proceed the way we're going with linear science, it's only a matter of time before the whole civilization goes down,
right,
and our planetary ecology is broken. If we can get these technologies out of the so-called black boxes, which they've been cloaked in, and this is starting to loosen this grip, I believe that there are clean technologies already available, which certain elements of the government have. There are many, many elements of proof to underwrite this, which we won't go into now. Not only can we have clean technologies and power to wean us from the so-called, one scientist humorously referred to as the petroleum tit. We have the electronic tit, we have the petroleum tit.
That's
we need
right.
to be weaned from these things and have conscious media. We need to have this interaction and openness to our ET helpers. They are there, and they're especially interested in helping us in areas that are non-strategic. That means non-military, and that's my approach. So I believe that it will be the ET technologies and interactions that help us ultimately transform this planet and bring the global ecology back to where it belongs.
But what do we need to do to prepare for the ET contact? I mean, of course the contact's been made, but to prepare for it on a worldwide level, in your opinion?
Essentially, it's pretty basic. It's a matter of simply, I put it this way, science has taught us from the time we began school, those of us that were schooled, to never believe anything which we cannot prove to be true. I simply say, please, just allow yourself not to disbelieve anything which you cannot prove to be untrue. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And the important thing is that when people open their minds and their hearts, especially their hearts, to the possibilities of interacting with these ETs who are here to help, they appall the fact that we have orbital weapons, and once the consciousness shifts, the support for the wars and weapons of mass destruction will cease to exist, and these essentially will wither on the vine.
I agree. Can you talk about any of your direct experiences in consciousness? Because, you know, as we as humans develop the facility for consciousness, we realize that this consciousness is infinite, and so we have access to other realms, and that's my personal opinion, and I feel you're someone who actually uses consciousness as a vehicle of communication, and if you care to share some of your personal experiences, it would be exciting for people to hear.
Yes, I'm going to speak a little bit about something that is very leading edge, and I hope those of you who I'm speaking to out there will at least open your minds to this possibility. I have very recently, say within the last year and a half, approached the idea of channeling. I have cross-matched from independently worked with a group of world-class psychics and channelers. And it is my firm conviction that channeling is a great untapped resource. I say this because one of the problems with channeling is it's got a new age fluffy kind of embellishment around it, or connotation.
But it's as old as the Bible. I mean,
absolutely.
And it's the Greek oracles were channels,
absolutely.
and the prophets in the Old Testament were channels.
And the court advisors.
Right.
And Merlin and King Arthur.
So channeling is a part of human history, absolutely. So I'm with you on that one.
And more than that, why would we do this? For the simple reason, bottom line, we could save billions of dollars. We could say the part that's very important is when you're dealing with a group of extraterrestrials who are there to help with a channel, you must ask very precisely the right questions. If you ask the right questions, the answers can be astonishing. We can save billions of dollars. We can save incredible amounts of valuable time, years, and eliminate the negatives, focus on the positives, keep going ahead, again do more probabilities and sorting. It's as if we had this master computer program.
No, I'm an old fan of channeling. I mean, I've met channels since like the 1980s. I just interviewed Bashar. Have you met Bashar?
I'm not familiar with that.
No, Darryl Anka. That is an extraterrestrial consciousness from the future.
Okay, excellent.
Who's talking through this guy Darryl Anka and giving some beautiful messages. But what messages have you received in this arena? What have you personally want to communicate from this?
Well, very recently, I have been working with this Humanitad group, and just last night we had this Millennium Development Awards ceremony at the United Nations. And just prior to that, I received a message essentially very directly that said that I had said that for years, ever since the time I was a child, I had wished to be an ambassador for the enlightened and positive extraterrestrial, our friends, those who want to help us, those who want to help those of us who want to make positive change. And so they said, okay, we grant you the official designation of ET ambassador.
And so what will that mean for you? What will your job be here?
What they said was simply this, and I think this is a nice thing for your viewers to remember, that all you have to do is open your heart and your mind and your consciousness and reach out, and what will happen is so simple and so subtle that you will not know it necessarily, for the simple reason when you become changed, all of your perspective and consciousness becomes changed. And simply, if you open this channel and become a conduit for this kind of downloaded energy, which is done in encoded light packets, these are quantum phenomena. And their explanation to me was that they can take what would take several weeks or months to write in linear fashion, and they can download that in a couple of nanoseconds. So if you open yourself to this, you will be surprised what suddenly begins to trickle down into your intuition. Keep your options open. Keep your attitudes positive. And your writing and your speaking and simply being around other people will transform them.
Actually, that is what I think is happening in the 2012 phenomenon, is that we're getting encoded with special language of light and sacred geometrical forms. But just to kind of wrap up here, what's your understanding of 2012? What's going to happen, in your opinion, planetarily, galactically?
Well, my synthesis of this is that, again, I said I'm an incurable optimist, and whenever I have a problem, as such, I have to believe that somewhere we can find a solution. And in asking specific questions, more specific questions about this to some of the ET councils, essentially, they said that certain areas will be protected from severe Earth changes. I know this much. We're going to have, it's going to be very difficult, but not impossible. We'll get through it. Certain elements of society will not get through it. But I think the main message is that we can change it. We can make it positive. We can get through it, and we can get through it with flying colors. But we have to have focus. We have to have concurrence. We have to have a consensual kind of attitude that, okay, bottom line, we're going to get through this. Now, how are we going to get through this? And the answers will come. Again, they will trickle down simply as through the intuition.
Well, thank you, Elliot. Thank you so much. Is there any final words you want to leave us with?
Yes.
Please tell the audience what you...
Keep an open mind, an open heart, and keep fighting the good fight.
And then we can all win-win. Thank you.
We better win if we want to survive. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Thank you for the work, and thank you for this book, Transforming the Global Biosphere. This is Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. Thank you for watching. Check my website, newrealities.com. Your website?
www.arcoscielo.com.